And in this episode, we're going to take a look at actually putting in a CAD incident from scratch. We're going to start out with a completely blank CAD incident, take a look at each of the individual fields to see what they do, what they're capable of, and then we'll save that CAD incident into the system and process it like a very basic event. Then we'll take a little bit more of an advanced look at it and see what sort of extra things we could have added to that CAD event if we had needed to or if the situation had required it. And here we are. We're first going to start taking a look at our CAD screen by clicking my Add button up here at the top. When I click on Add, you're going to see it whites out all of my fields, and it's going to allow me to begin entering in the information for this particular call that we're going to be putting in. Now, the first bit of information I want to draw your attention to is up here in the very top. This top row, for the most part, is automatically completed for you whenever you begin an incident. So starting from the left-hand side here, you'll see I have the date and time automatically put in based off of my CAD clock and the current date. Next to that, I have my event number, which is currently blank, but as soon as I hit save for the first time, that will be filled in with the next event number in the system. So if my previous event number was 1, my next event number will be 2, then so on to 3, 4, 5, on it goes. Also next to it, you'll notice the report number is blank, but will be automatically generated as soon as the dispatcher selects the Issue Report button down here in the lower right-hand corner of my CAD card. The final one I have up here is Received Via, currently set to radio by default. Now that could change. Your system may be set up to show something different. If you do ever open up a CAD incident and need something other than your default, which in my case here is radio, I can easily hit this down arrow and I can change it to whatever other code I may need. Otherwise, I can leave that alone anytime I start up a CAD incident and just start directly on the second row, which is where I'm going to be actually putting in my initial incident. Now, to put in my incident code, as well as a lot of these other drop-down menus you'll see, I have a few options. I can click my down arrow next to initial incident, and that'll allow me to scroll through the full list of possible codes that I can put into the system here. I can also just begin typing. So as I begin typing, if I start typing out assault, I'm going to get my 2 assault codes as options from there. So it's an auto-filtering field. Another way we can search through this field would be if I click my down arrow, I can use these column headers to sort and organize my codes to pick the correct one that I'm looking for. So for example, if I knew that my code was somewhere in the service call classification, I could click classification, which would automatically organize them all by classification. And then if I scroll down to my service, you'll see all of my service calls are now together. So now if I don't know the name, if I don't know the code, if I don't know anything close to what I'm looking for, I can always use that column header to organize and better find the code that I need. Now once I pick the code I'm looking for, let's go ahead and stick with the assault code example we were using earlier. When I pick that code, it's going to not only put that code in my initial incident field, but you'll notice down here at the bottom, it's also pre-filled out my final incident field as well. Now this is because most calls, whatever the dispatcher puts the call in as to begin with, is what it ends as. So in my case here, my simple assault is likely to stay a simple assault. So down here at the bottom, I have my final incident code preset to final incident simple assault. However, if I need to, I can come down here and this field works just the same as my other initial incident field, and I can begin typing, organizing, doing anything I need to here to find the final incident code that I want to put in. Though usually this wouldn't be needed until the end of the call. So if I just leave this for simple assault right now, let's think of some examples where we may need to actually use this initial versus final incident classification. Let's say, for example, we have a call come in for a disturbance of the peace. I dispatch an officer out to that scene. Turns out when the officer gets there, that disturbance has turned into a domestic violence of some sort, something that we may need more than one officer assigned to. Now, what this is going to accomplish is I can have my initial incident set to disturbing the peace and my final incident set to domestic violence. Now, what I'm doing there is I'm keeping a timeline of what's occurred during this CAD incident. So when we look back at the times, we don't have to really question, well, dispatcher, why did you only dispatch one officer to a domestic violence incident when you should have dispatched more than one? But we're keeping the timeline of everything that's being recorded in this CAD event so that we can go back and actually see the process of the events and see what happened. Also, several other fields are going to be filled out for us automatically as well. So if I look next to my initial incident code, you'll notice I have a call timer listed as 5 and a priority of 1. So call timer is going to be how often is ARMS going to notify the dispatcher when a incident has lasted, in this case, 5 minutes without being updated. So if we had, for example, Officer 44 was assigned to this call in particular, and we did not modify or update that call in 5 minutes, it's going to pop up an alert and alert the dispatcher that Unit 44 has been on scene at this simple assault for 5 minutes without being updated. The dispatcher will then have the ability to click yes if they wanted to reset that timer to 5 minutes again, or hit no if they want to reset that timer to 1 minute so that they can quickly get something done and get back into it to update that call. Below there, you'll notice I have my priority. My priority is just simply going to be the ordering of my calls in my open calls list. So for example, if I had a call of priority 1, it could appear at the top, but a call with priority 5 could appear towards the bottom. Now this is modifiable, so this ordering from 1 to 5 could be reversed to be 5 to 1 in your system, depending on how you dispatch and how your system is set up. All right, and there's also some optional things that could pop up depending on what type of call you're putting in. So if I change this from a simple assault to a fire, when I put in a fire, you'll notice I get a lot of the same things. I get my call timer set to 65, my priority is 5, my final incident is fire, but you'll notice I have a new item over here. You can't hear it, but that actually just rang in my ear as well to let me know, hey, there's some information about this that you need to know about. And so that's what this is showing us. This SOP button here stands for Standard Operating Procedure, and that's going to pop up anytime there's a note that is attached to that incident code that the ARMS administrator or the comm supervisor wants you to be aware of anytime you are interacting with this type of call. So when I click on that, that's going to actually open up my SOP screen and allow me to see those notes. So in my case here, I have a note for I need to dispatch 2 patrol units to this type of call. I need to contact the local fire department, and I also need to contact student housing with the phone number if that fire is in a dorm. So these are my notes, these are my steps. These could be people to contact, these could be steps to follow, questions for the reporting party, questions for anybody that's on scene. You know, there's so many things that can be put in here. It's completely wide open of what could be in here. And think of them as any of the helpful standard operating procedure notes that normally you would either have to remember or flip open a binder, open up an Excel spreadsheet, something to that effect. So rather than doing all that, they can all be saved in here, and you'll be notified with an audio alert and a visual alert of that SOP button whenever those things pop up. My next set of fields we're going to see here are going to be all location-based. So you'll notice my next 2 fields, I have a field here for my street number, and then another drop-down field for my street name. Now, I can fill those out, so if I wanted to send somebody to, let's say, 2503, let's go with University Avenue for my example here, I can do that. However, one thing that ARMS does that will help speed up your dispatching process is setting up all these addresses as a common name. So rather than having to manually type in the street address, I can either use my drop-down menu or type in my code or filter through my columns. All the same abilities apply here. But I can put in my location and have it automatically fill out a lot of this information for me. So let's say, for example, I wanted to put in the University Police Department. So when I do that, that's going to automatically put in all my information for that building. It automatically renamed it to Kennard Hall. It automatically put in the street address of 207 Rebel Drive. All of my street information is already here. Now, one thing I can also see whenever I put in my my location is it's going to also let me know any extra information about that location over here to the far right-hand side. So you'll see in this location, I've got several officer safety warnings, And I've also got contact information for who to call if something happens at this building. So all of this information is preloaded by your ARMS administrators and will automatically pop up for you when you interact with that location. Once again, I got an audible alert and all of these notes to let me know, hey, there is something, there's some aspect of this location that they want you to be made aware of, and here it is. Here's that information. Our next item below there is our reporting party information. So you'll see here I have reporting party first name, last and or business name if that's the case, the phone number for the reporting party, and the address information. So if I was to be the reporting party on this CAD event, would put in my first name, my last name, my phone number. This is not a real phone number, don't call it. And then the address as well down here at the bottom. So the information here is now input for the CAD incident for a basic run-of-the-mill CAD incident. Now there's a lot of other things we could do from this point. We could, for example, add in notes. So we've already added in some notes automatically based off of the information we put into the CAD event. But we could also come up here, right-click, and add to actually type in more notes. These are automatically time-stamped. They're tracked for who modified them, who added them, time and date stamps on them as well. So all that information would be contained in that note. Now below there, you'll notice I have a public information text box. Now this one is a little bit different because it's not line items, it's not time-stamped, it's not modified checks. So with my public information, what I'm looking at here is basically a text box for the summary of the event. So if I said, for example, there was a fire at this location. So when I do that, now that's going to be my public information. So if I run a media log, if I wanted to include this on my Clery daily log, there's some example of some reports that we could have this summary appear alongside the rest of this information we've put in at this point. Now, our next item we'd have here would be our unit as well. So this is just going to perform just like our other menus. We can hit our down menu to find the person that we're looking for, or we can begin typing in the unit if we wanted to do it that way. So let's just say, for example, I knew I wanted to put unit C4, who happens to be me, onto this CAD event. So I would put that in, C4, hit tab. Notice it auto-completes out my name there. My activity code for this call is going to be AC for assigned call, and I'm going to use the letter T and then hit tab to automatically put in the current timestamp in my dispatch field. So at that point, what I can do is I can go ahead and save this CAD incident, and now all that information that we've put into here is now inside of CAD, which means anybody else that's in CAD would also be able to see this information. And just look at it. So we have my C4 unit has turned red because he is now on this call. My open calls list is now showing a yellow call because this call has been dispatched. So my officer has been dispatched this call up to this point. And the call is now saved and ready to be worked on further, or now I could jump to another call if I needed to work on a different call in the system.